My dad's new wife and her daughter tried to get me out of my late mom's house by falsely accusing me of harassment, but their plan backfired. I, 25 male, live in my house with my father Nolan, 52 male, his wife Gemma, 48 female, and my stepsister Claire, 23 female. This house originally belonged to my mom, who died of cancer 3 years ago. She fought hard for 2 years but eventually succumbed to stage 4 breast cancer. Before dying, she transferred the house in my name, saying she wanted to make sure I always had a home to come back to. My dad took mom's death really hard at first. He would spend hours just sitting in their bedroom, looking at old photos. But then suddenly, about 8 months after mom died, he started going out more. He said his friends at work were encouraging him to socialize. That's how he met Gemma at a colleague's dinner party. Within 4 months of meeting her, he announced they were getting married. I was devastated but couldn't do much about it, as he is an adult who can make his own decisions. The wedding was a small affair, nothing like the grand celebration my parents had. I've seen their wedding video countless times. From the very beginning, I noticed that Gemma didn't like me. During the wedding reception, she made several comments about how it was unusual for a grown man to still live with his father. When I tried talking to her about my job in IT or my hobbies, she would quickly change the subject or walk away to talk to someone else. After the wedding, things got worse. She would always try to exclude me from family activities. If Dad suggested watching a movie together, she would counter with plans for just the two of them. She would cook dinner early when she knew I was working late, leaving me to fend for myself. She would make snide remarks about how I was still living with my father at this age, conveniently forgetting that it was my house, not hers. Claire moved in with us 6 months after their marriage. She had just graduated college with a degree in communications and was looking for a job in marketing. Initially, she seemed nice, even asking me for advice about job applications and interview preparation. But that facade didn't last long. Once she felt comfortable, she started showing her true colors. She would throw loud parties without asking, inviting 15 to 20 people over on weeknights when I had work the next day. She would leave the house a mess, empty bottles, food containers, and cigarette butts everywhere, and expect me to clean up after her. Her best friend Lisa, 23F, practically lived at our house, eating our food and using our utilities without contributing anything. The real problem started when Gemma began pressuring my dad about me moving out. I overheard her one night saying, "Nolan, don't you think Op needs his own space? He's 25, he should be independent by now." My dad responded by reminding her that it was my house, left to me by mom. Gemma got really quiet after that, but I could feel her resentment growing. That's when Claire and Lisa started becoming more openly hostile. They would blast music when I was trying to work from home. I work remotely 3 days a week. They would leave their dirty dishes in the sink for days, and when I would ask them to clean up, they would roll their eyes and say I was being controlling. They would use my expensive coffee machine without permission and never clean it properly, leading to it getting clogged twice. I overheard many conversations between Gemma and Claire where they discussed ways to get me to leave. One time, Claire suggested trying to convince my dad to ask me to transfer the house to him, saying they could argue it would be better for tax purposes. Gemma liked the idea but said my dad would never agree because of his guilt over that woman, meaning my mom. The situation got worse when Claire lost her job 3 months ago. She had been working at a marketing firm for about 5 months. She claimed it was due to workplace discrimination, but I later heard her telling Lisa on the phone that she got fired for being late too many times and taking too many mental health days. After losing her job, she started spending more time at home with Lisa, making my life miserable. They would deliberately do things to annoy me. When I was in virtual meetings, they would play loud TikTok videos in the next room. They would accidentally spill things on my belongings. Lisa once spilled an entire cup of coffee on my laptop bag. Thankfully my laptop wasn't inside. They would make messes in the kitchen right after I cleaned it, claiming they were just trying to make lunch. When I complained to my dad about their behavior, Gemma would immediately jump in. She would say I was being too sensitive and that I should be more understanding of my stepsister's situation. "She's going through a tough time," Gemma would say, "you should try to be more supportive." My dad would usually just sigh and ask us all to try to get along. Last month, I started noticing things in my room weren't quite where I left them. My desk drawers seemed slightly more open, papers were in different order, and once I found one of my mom's old photographs face down when I always keep it standing. That's when I decided to install a security camera in my room. I didn't tell anyone about it because I wanted to catch whoever was going through my stuff. The camera was hidden behind some books on my shelf, facing my door. The final straw came when Claire and Lisa started using my gaming setup when I was at work. I had built my PC myself, spending months saving up for the components. One day, I came home to find sticky food residue all over my keyboard and mouse, crumbs between the keys, and energy drink stains on my desk mat. When I confronted Claire, she denied everything despite there being clear evidence. Gemma jumped to her defense, accused me of being paranoid and making up stories to make Claire look bad. I decided to start documenting everything that was happening. I kept screenshots of texts where Claire would mock me to her friends, photos of the messes they would leave, and recordings from my room's camera. I knew I might need this evidence someday, though I hoped it wouldn't come to that. My dad seemed oblivious to most of what was happening. He was rarely home due to his work as a construction project manager, often leaving early and coming home late. When he was home, Gemma and Claire would act completely different, all sweet and caring. I tried talking to him about their behavior several times, but he always said the same thing: just try harder to get along with them. They're your family now. But they weren't my family. My family was my mom, who worked 2 jobs to help pay for this house, who spent weekends teaching me how to cook her special recipes, who made sure I would always have a home even after she was gone. I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Update 1. Things took a dark and unexpected turn yesterday. I was in my room, working on a project, when I heard loud voices downstairs. Initially, I ignored it, thinking it was just Claire and Lisa being their usual noisy selves. But then I heard my dad shouting my name, which was unusual because he rarely raises his voice. When I went downstairs, I found an unsettling scene. Claire was sitting on the couch crying, with Lisa comforting her. Gemma was standing nearby with a concerned look that I could tell was fake. My dad was pacing the living room, his face red with anger. Before I could ask what was happening, my dad started yelling at me. Claire and Lisa had come to him with serious accusations. They claimed I had been secretly recording them around the house. Lisa, with tears in her eyes, said she had noticed small cameras in the bathroom and their bedroom. Claire added that she had found a recording device under her bed. But they didn't stop there. They told my dad I had been making inappropriate comments about them when he wasn't around. Lisa said she had started feeling unsafe coming to our house because of the way I would stare at her. Claire claimed she had caught me trying to peek into her room several times. My dad was absolutely furious. He stormed up to me, waving his phone in my face. On it were screenshots of what appeared to be messages from me to Claire, making suggestive comments and threats. I knew immediately they were fake. I never sent those messages, but the screenshots looked convincing. When I tried to defend myself, saying these were all lies, Gemma interrupted. She said they had all noticed my disturbing behavior over the past few months but had been too afraid to say anything. She mentioned instances where I had supposedly followed Claire and Lisa to the mall, which was completely fabricated. I learned that Claire and Lisa had been planting these ideas in my dad's head gradually over the past week. They started with small things, like mentioning feeling uncomfortable around me. Then they built up to bigger accusations, each one making me sound more and more predatory. The worst part was watching my dad believe every word. This man who had raised me, who had seen me grow up, was looking at me like I was a monster. He said he was ashamed to call me his son and that my mom would be disappointed in me. That last part felt like a physical blow. Using my mom against me was a low blow. Gemma, ever the manipulator, stepped in with her fake concern. She suggested that they could help me find an apartment, saying it would be best for everyone. She even offered to help pay for the first month's rent, though we all knew that was an empty gesture. All while she spoke, I could see the triumph in her eyes. Claire kept up her performance, saying through sobs that she was scared to sleep in the same house as me. Lisa chimed in, saying she couldn't bear to see her best friend living in fear. They had clearly rehearsed this whole scene. My dad gave me an ultimatum. I had 3 days to move out, or he would call the police. When I reminded him that this was legally my house, he said he would file a harassment complaint and get a restraining order. Gemma quickly supported this, saying she would testify about my concerning behavior. I stayed quiet through all of this. I knew getting defensive would only make me look guilty. Plus, I had my own evidence that would prove my innocence. I went back to my room, locked the door, and started reviewing the footage from my camera. Later that night, around 2 a.m., while everyone else was asleep, Claire came to my room. She clearly thought I was sleeping because she didn't knock. The camera caught her sneaking in with Lisa. They spent a few minutes going through my drawers, probably looking for the other cameras they had lied about. Then they started talking, not realizing they were being recorded. Claire bragged about how well their plan was working. "Did you see his face when Dad started yelling?" She laughed. Lisa joined in, saying the fake text messages she had created looked totally real. They discussed their next steps. If I didn't leave within 3 days, they planned to plant something in my room to make the accusations seem more credible. The most revealing part was when Claire admitted that Gemma had helped them come up with the whole plan. They wanted me out so Claire could have my room, which was bigger and had a better view. Plus, Gemma thought that once I was gone, she could convince my dad to transfer the house to him, and eventually to her name. I spent the rest of the night copying and backing up the video footage. I knew I had to time this right, show the evidence too soon, and they might try to come up with another plan. Show it too late, and I might end up actually getting kicked out of my own house. For now, I decided to play along. Let them think they had won. They had no idea that their own scheme was about to blow up in their faces. Update 2. This morning, I finally executed my plan. I created a detailed email with timestamps and evidence, attaching the video from my room camera. I sent it to everyone in our extended family, including my aunts, uncles, cousins, and most importantly, my dad. The video was crystal clear. It showed Claire and Lisa in my room at 2 a.m., admitting to their entire scheme. Claire's exact words were, "Dad's so stupid, he'll believe anything if I cry enough." Lisa laughed and added, "Those fake texts I made look totally real." He didn't even question them. They even discussed how Gemma had helped them plan everything. But while going through all the footage, I discovered something even more interesting. In one clip from a few weeks ago, Claire and Lisa were discussing their secret OnlyFans account. They had been creating content together in Claire's room when everyone else was out. They talked about how much money they were making, apparently several $1,000s a month, and laughed about how their parents would literally die if they found out. I included the link to their OnlyFans account in the email. Not because I wanted to shame them, but because it proved they were the ones secretly recording in the house, not me. They had been setting up cameras in Claire's room for their content, which explained why they knew exactly how to make their accusations against me sound believable. Within hours, my phone was blowing up. My Aunt Janet called first, saying she was appalled at what Gemma and Claire had tried to do. My Uncle Mike, who's a lawyer, called to offer legal help if I needed it. But the most important reaction was my dad's. He came home early from work, looking like he had aged 10 years. He had watched everything during his lunch break and left immediately. When he got home, he called Gemma and Claire downstairs. His hands were shaking as he played the video on our TV. Claire tried to defend herself, saying I had violated her privacy by recording in my own room. When that didn't work, she tried to claim the video was fake. Gemma attempted to back her up, but then my dad played the part about their OnlyFans account. The look on Gemma's face was priceless. She turned to Claire, screaming, "You've been doing what?" Apparently, she hadn't known about that part. Claire started crying, real tears this time, saying it was all Lisa's idea. That's when I played another clip showing it was actually Claire who suggested starting the account. Gemma's mask finally cracked completely. She started screaming at me, calling me every name in the book. She threatened to sue me for recording without consent, for defamation, for emotional distress. She only shut up when my Uncle Mike, who I had on speakerphone, explained that I had every right to install security cameras in my own room, especially given their behavior. My dad just sat there, looking devastated. He finally turned to Gemma and said, "Pack your things. Both of you." When Gemma tried to argue, he cut her off. I said, "Pack your things. Now." His voice was quiet but firm. Claire ran upstairs crying, probably to call Lisa. But Lisa had her own problems. Her parents had also received my email, and from what I heard later, they were not happy about discovering their daughter's secret online activities. The most satisfying part was watching Gemma and Claire pack their bags while my dad supervised. He didn't say a word, just watched as they grabbed their essential items. He told them they could come back for the rest of their things later, when he was present. After they left, my dad broke down. He apologized over and over for not believing me, for letting them manipulate him, for failing as a father. He admitted that he had ignored many red flags because he was so desperate to have a complete family again after Mom died. I was angry with him, sure, but I could also see how expertly Gemma had manipulated him. She had taken advantage of his grief and loneliness, using it to worm her way into our lives. Claire had played her part perfectly too, acting like the sweet stepdaughter until it was time to strike. Some family members suggested I press charges for defamation and false accusations. But I decided having them out of my house and out of our lives was enough. Sometimes the best revenge is simply exposing people for who they really are and watching them face the consequences of their own actions. Update 3. A lot has happened since my last update. My dad and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship, though it's not easy. He initially moved out with Gemma and Claire, saying he needed time to process everything. He got a small apartment nearby and has been going to grief counseling. He finally admitted that he never properly dealt with Mom's death and rushed into marriage with Gemma to fill the void. Last week, he told me he's filing for divorce. The final straw came when he discovered that Gemma had been secretly transferring money from their joint account to Claire's account. When confronted, she claimed it was to help Claire get back on her feet after losing her job, but bank statements showed she'd been doing this since they got married. Claire and Lisa's OnlyFans scandal caused quite an uproar in our family and social circle. Claire tried to blame everything on Lisa, claiming she was pressured into it. But that backfired spectacularly when Lisa, angry at being thrown under the bus, revealed more of Claire's plots against me. Apparently, if their harassment story hadn't worked, they had planned to plant drugs in my room and call the police for an anonymous tip. Lisa also revealed that Claire had been lying about looking for jobs. She had been using the money Gemma gave her to buy expensive clothes and makeup for their OnlyFans content. She hadn't submitted a single job application in months. Gemma still tries to contact my dad. She shows up at his workplace sometimes, crying and claiming she can explain everything. She even tried to get our relatives to convince him to give her another chance. But Dad's done with her manipulation. He said seeing those videos of her plotting with Claire made him realize she never really loved him. Some relatives, especially the older ones, suggested I should forgive them for the sake of family unity. My Aunt Carol said that since Dad and Gemma were legally married, maybe we could work something out about the house. I shut that down immediately. My mom left me this house because she wanted me to have a safe place to call home. I won't dishonor her memory by giving in to the people who tried to force me out. I've made some changes to ensure this never happens again. I changed all the locks and installed a proper security system with cameras covering all entrances. My Uncle Mike helped me draft a legal notice warning Gemma and Claire against trespassing or making any further false accusations. Dad comes over for dinner twice a week now. We're taking things slow, rebuilding the trust that was damaged. He brought up selling his apartment and moving back in, but I told him I needed more time. I love him, but I'm still hurt by how quickly he believed their lies over my word. The house feels peaceful now. I've repainted my mom's old art room, which Claire had taken over, and set it up as my home office. Sometimes when I'm working there, I feel like Mom is watching over me, happy that I stood my ground. As for me, I've learned a lot from this experience. I learned that sometimes the people who claim to be family can be the ones who hurt you the most. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. Mom raised me to stand up for myself, and that's exactly what I did. Gemma and Claire's plan to take my house failed miserably, and all their scheming only left them with nothing. Sometimes karma works perfectly on its own, you just have to wait and watch.